Champion, how you doing? Welcome back. Pretty excited about today's topic, and literally, it's going to be very important. And today's topic is basically how world class differentiate themselves by being decisive, right? How world class leverage, this decisiveness to separate themselves from, the average performer. First of all, I hope you are able to listen to last week where we talk about how the champions, right, the world class, how they differentiate, how they outperform the average performer by using courage, right? So today is really a build up to that, and really, how do we build up from that? And that's what we're really going to talk about. How champions, you know, by being decisive, are separating themselves from the average and the mediocre, right? So it's really powerful today because last week we talked about courage, right? How you can use that to, outperform, anybody in your field, right? And today's I want to build on that, right? And really, there's one quote that, as I was sharing last week, that just stood out. Is this quote that we're going to build on? Is basically Winston Churchill, right, the former prime minister in UK that helped UK get out of, right, the World War II. He says this: courage is the greatest of all virtues. Why in his eyes? Because it guarantees the others, right? Courage is the greatest virtues of all other, according to Winston Churchill. Why? Because it guarantees all the other virtues. And I want to build on that, right? There are certainly some element of truth in what he says, but really what that does. So what does courage allow us to do? Courage allows us to make choices, to take action, right? And this is really what I want to build on, because courage without decision or action is mere pride. It's just merely pride, right? And that's what I want to discuss today. Because really, what makes really courage powerful is that moment, that split of moment when you decide. And that's what I want to address here. And that's really where the real power lies. And that's where really the power of courage is. And that's what I really want to explore today, because this is really where a lot of people are missing, the point. You get, right? So just last week, so we developed that. But today, so what is the power of decisiveness? Right? Because sometimes, we find ourselves in analysis paralysis, right? But why decisiveness is powerful? Okay? This is why I love to discuss about that. So decisiveness, being the decision to decide, come from the Latin, right? DC, D, right? To, and then cut off, decidere. So it's basically to cut off. It's basically to cut off any other option, right? So basically, when we decide, we're basically cutting off, we're putting to bed, right? We're putting to death other options, right? And that's the beauty of making a decision, because when you make a decision, when you have A, B, or C, when you make a choice, you go forward, right? As we all know, according to quantum physics, is, what you focus on grow, what you focus on the energy basically grow in that field, right? So that's why it's very important to learn to decide, and it's a muscle that you can exercise, and that's really what the good news is here, right? And that's what we're going to share. How world class and champion, exercise that muscle of decision, making decision, right? And really, that's what really makes the great leaders powerful. It's not that they have all the information, but here is a trick. So it's two big secrets that we're going to share. You ready? The average performer or the weak performer, guess what? They play to not lose. I'm going to repeat that again. the mediocre performer or the mediocre leaders, in fact, they play to not lose. So let's think about that. Whether you play basketball, any sport you play, right? Soccer, football, baseball, anything that you do. Think about it. If you play not to lose versus, on the other side, we're playing to win, what's happening? Right? You're playing small. You're playing small. Basically, your goal is really, your vision is very small. So in that mode of thinking, what's happening? You are afraid to make decisions, right? So that's a bigger secret, because the world class, they play to win. When you play to win, you have your target, so you get outside of your comfort zone. But when you play not to lose, right, you just wiggling your small territory while you're being attacked, right? And playing not to lose is even worse than playing defensive, because when you play to win, sometimes you got to play defensive, sometimes you got to play offensive, right? That's a real play to win, right? Play to win doesn't mean you're just playing offensive, right? But when you play to win, sometimes you got to play defensive, sometimes you got to play offensive, sometimes you just got to mix them off. But people that are playing just not to lose, they're on a defensive the whole, that's a strategy. Sorry, but if you think about that, what that means, right? So that's the number one mistake that all these people do, really, if you think about it, right? And that's really what I just want to share, really, in that way, right? So when you play not to lose, right, you kind of really throwing your towel. So that's really the number one mistake that all the average performer, mediocre performer make, right? So what is the second thing that's really important? It's this. It's really that key. The world class, they know that mistake will be made, right? They're not sure 100% of a decision, especially when there are changes all the time. But this is the key. This is what they know. They assume the full responsibility of a decision. Let me repeat that. They assume the full responsibility of a decision. Why that makes a difference? Because I know that even if I'm not 100% right, no matter the outcome, I own it, right? It's that ownership component of the outcome that makes the world class, right? So when you make a decision, you own the outcome of a decision. So there is no blaming, there is no victimhood, there is nothing. Yeah, this is a choice I made, and this is action I'm taking. And no matter the outcome, I'll move forward with that. So being decisive in that way is powerful, because you're going to assume the full responsibility of outcome, right? And this is really what the power of thinking of the great leaders, great champions are. I decide if it goes this way, I assume it. If it goes this way, I assume it. And then you move forward. That's really powerful. While the average or mediocre performer say, if I choose this, this can happen, this can happen. So in a way, you're tripping yourself, because there is so many things that can happen, right? And as we live in a quantum world, right, reality is what you look at, what you see. So when you make a decision, you lock in into the reality that you want to see, right? And that's really powerful, right? So this is the third thing I want to add is this. This is the biggest mistake that a lot of mediocre leaders or champions or do. They think that by not deciding, they're okay, they're safe. But this is really the trick. By not deciding, you are deciding, right? By not deciding, you are deciding. What do I mean by that? Because by letting the status quo, you're letting things happen, right? Someone that make a decision is making a decision, right? So by not deciding, you are deciding, right? So the status quo is deceiving, And that's what I want to share, right? So that's the third mistake that the mediocre performer do. They think that by, staying put, that they're not deciding. So I want to make it clear: by not deciding, you are deciding. So that's the third mistake you don't want to make. All right. So again, I hope this serves you best. So really, the key is lock in to what you want. So those are the key, right? So now I share the three mistakes that the mediocre do, right? But now, how do world class achieve the reverse? This is the thing. They build on courage and clarity, right? So the world class, they decide by building on courage and clarity, right? And those kind of locked up and give a foundation, right? When you have courage, you know your why, right? As we discussed last week. When you have clarity, you know what matters to you, what's important, what's your priority number one. So with clarity, you know what matters to you the most. With courage, you know why it matters to you, and you lock those in. Courage, clarity, that gives you foundation for decision. Am I making sense? Courage, clarity, decision, right? Because again, even if you have courage but you don't take action, you don't decide, it's just pride. It doesn't go nowhere. Okay? But courage, lock into clarity, allows you to decide. As you decide quick, you get the result, you move on. Right? So that's really the difference. Right? So again, I'm going to repeat that just for right. So the mediocre performer, they play not to lose. Right? That's the mistake they do. Number one mistake. The second biggest mistake they make is basically, like we discussed, is they forget that not making a decision is making a decision, right? So not making a decision is making a decision, right? And while the world class, they understand what matters to them the most, they lock that clarity, and they use the courage, as we discussed, and then they decide. As you decide, my friend, that allows you really to build. Because what happened, you either win or you learn. You win or you learn. And that's how you move forward. All right? It doesn't help to not decide. So this is how you exercise your muscle, right? So again, if you feel confused, right? A confused mind cannot decide. That's why. For the simplest trick is, when you lock courage and clarity, you decide, right? You say, oh, so sometimes I have many options. How do I do that? I learned something quick by a friend that just shared that with me. So it's called the consider box, right? What do you mean consider box? Let's say you have A, B, C, D options, right? So what is the most, what pulls you more? What do you like the most between A, B, C, D? So if you think they're equal, like 48, 49%, right? If they're equally close, choose one and put one in a consider box, right? So I'm going to consider that next. I'm going to consider next. So you choose A if that's your first choice, and you put B, C, D in your consider box. Which means when you choose A, you decide and you act, right? If it works, great. If it doesn't, you learn from A and then you use B. Am I making sense? But by not deciding, you're deciding and you're wasting time, and then this is how things happen and you lose. Does it make sense? I hope this serves you. So I hope you use the power of decision to take yourself to the next level, right? So courage, clarity, decisiveness, and the consider box. I hope this serves you, and please share if this was helpful and it brings value to you. All right, till next time, don't forget, dare to shine. Really, as you can see, I'm here in the park. It's beautiful spring, and I really want to share that with you, and I hope that makes your day. All right, my friend, talk to you later. Cheers, bye.